Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition to the Point Podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. As always, we're here on the Tuesday nights. So we're going to be talking some Breaking Bad. But before we get into two really interesting episodes, two very different ones, but very interesting nonetheless. Shay, your Leafs hold on for a win last night, just by the skin of their teeth. They head into Game 4 tonight. What's your confidence meter on getting a W tonight?
I think it'll be tight, but I think still working out some of those kinks with old MTL. No, Carey Price played an unbelievable game. Whoever watched it last night just got to see an actual performance by him, which he seems to do every time he's in the playoffs now. But no, it's good. Just got to hope Montreal can still suck at the power play, and hopefully we'll just grind out another couple wins. I'm not looking forward to if we have to play Winnipeg because their power play seems to be a tad bit better than Montreal's right now, but we'll see. I like where the confidence is at. I think the boys just need to, I don't know, maybe get the puck moving a little bit better. Morgan Riley's got to stay off the old ice when it comes to the PK and things like that.
I think they'll win easy tonight. I'll say 4-5-1 victory tonight.
You would go with your backups though tonight, right? I don't know. I haven't even checked to see who's in net.
No, it's the starters.
It is the starters again. Yeah. So the fatigue. So we'll see if Carey Price, taking those shots on last night, if he can do it again tonight, it'd be certainly impressive. But yeah, I agree. I'm sniffing a 4-2, 4-1 win. Kind of team too.
Montreal can't score. And both power plays are god awful. That I think it sucks momentum out from the team because whenever they do get a power play, the other team gets some momentum. But that game night, we also got Carolina, Nashville on the docket. So game 4 and game 5. So two huge games this evening. So we ended last week with Jesse and Walter getting kidnapped by Tuco Salamanca, just telling him to get in the car. And we'll start with season 2, episode 2 called Grilled. And I love the title. So foreshadowing. It's also, I think it leads into episode 3 in a way. Knowing what we know. But what did you make of the opening scene where we hear the bumping of Jesse's car and then the bullets everywhere, but we have no context as to why? What did you make of the lead of episode 2?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It was great deal by the writers doing this foreshadowing again. It kind of leads in and then it kind of ends with all these bullets, these bullet cases all around Jesse's car. No idea where it is. Looks like it's in the desert, almost like where they were cooking meth for some reason. So we have no recollection of what's going on. But yeah, it's an interesting way to open it up, and love the way this episode. This by far is one of my. I forgot how good, knowing what happens in episode 1, how good this episode really is as a whole, because we just see Jesse. It's one of the very few episodes in the whole series where we see Jesse and Walter together for the entire episode.
Right.
It's something I always like.
I absolutely agree. We see different plot points from the family, but I agree. I love seeing them together. They're dynamic. And so, and so we go from that scene, no context as to why this is happening. And we see Hank telling the rest of the DEA that basically they did a search down of Tuco's compound. They arrested his buddies, Gonzo and the other guy are dead. And that they've looked at his house. They talked to his cracked out girlfriend. They can't find him. But there's a manhunt for Tuco, and they're basically the DEA is searching for him with every bit of force, every bit of money, so to speak, they can put towards finding Mr. Salamanca.
And it comes into play later, Juggy, but it's so funny. You get Hank hyping all these people up, like, we're going to catch this guy. And the minute he closes the door behind him, he's like, we're not catching this guy. Yeah. And I think it really comes into play later on, especially towards the end of this episode. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, he's got the knowledge that he knows in any normal situation, Tuco's probably gone to Mexico far, far away from a mess like this. That way he's got no liability and no one's coming to find him.
Right. Yeah. He tells Gomi, he's across the Mexican border. We can't touch him. Yeah. But he says, I got to skip out, even though there's a manhunt. Walter's missing. So we learned that Skylar has called the cops, and she said, my husband left the house abruptly. She doesn't know that he left with Tuco and Jesse, just that he left and it's not come back for several hours, and Hank proceeds to the White home.
Yes, yeah, and when he gets in there, there's a PI already in there, somebody Hank knows and probably trusts, but it's a weird situation because Walter's been acting so strange, so they obviously bring that to the table. As soon as Hank gets there, he's looking around Walter's vehicle, and what does he find? But he finds a second cell phone, which is news to him, and obviously brings up a lot of concern if you're his family, I would think.
Yeah, and Skylar mentions to the PI, there was a phone call, and he goes, "What phone call?" And he's like, "Well, okay, we'll look into it." And he walks the PI out, Hank does, and he says, "Yeah, I ran it. There's no record of a phone call." And they both share this little scene where they go, "Oh, a second phone. That's not good." And the first thing you think of is infidelity.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's no, not in a million years you'd think that he's got a second cell phone for his partner in crime who he cooks meth with, which would also be his former high school student. But yeah, that's what he's thinking, and it's a crazy. I mean, just a crazy episode. But let's get full into meeting one of a character that he's around for the entire series, but his introduction is second to none, I think, and we learn more and more about this guy every season that we get into in his past. But
I love this character for many reasons, because I remember watching the show, reading stuff online, how much people hated him, and I got my parents to watch it. My mother hated Hector, and I said, I get it, but I also love the guy because he's an old school drug dealer. He's in a chair, but so we see Tuco, he's destroying cell phones in the middle of the desert. We do see this little shack, so to speak, a little home, and he's chucking cell phones. We don't know where Jesse and Walter are, but Tuco goes to the trunk. We hear them trying to escape, which is just pretty pathetic. And he opens it up. He throws them out and he tells them to go inside, but we know already that he hates Jesse. And he continues to show it because he'll kick him, and he picks on him way more than he does Walter.
Oh, for sure. At the end of the day, I think he knows that he needs Walter if he wants to be making this crazy meth with him. But Jesse just kind of seems like a sideline guy. He doesn't seem that important. A lot of their conversations between them don't, between the two parties, we'll say, mostly just go through Walter and Tuco. But yeah, you're right. Even he just pushes them all the time. He'll just be behind them and he kind of gives them a shove just because he's kind of a bully.
Yeah. So they go inside and he sits them on the couch, and right in front of them is this guy, big white beater on, pretty messy, but he's a paraplegic and he's got oxygen hooked up to his nose. But the biggest thing about him is he's got his finger like this, just going like this, but attached to his chair is a bell. And we learn that this guy's name is Don Hector Salamanca. And we'll learn more about him as the show goes on. He's a really compelling character. But at first, they just think he's, Tuco's disabled uncle, and he's really no threat because he's just sitting there, not being able to stop them in any way.
Yeah, I may be wrong, but doesn't Tuco call him Uncle Theo? Is that
he calls him Theo? Yeah.
Which I didn't understand, but
yeah, I don't know either.
Nickname for Hector?
Yeah, his name's. It might be might be another slang for Hector. But yeah, you're right. He does call him Theo the whole time. And, they're in the middle of nowhere, like you said, near the Mexican border. Tuco tells them that his cousins, who we don't see right away, but we will, they're coming to get him. And that they're going to sneak over the border, and he's going to bring Walter with him. And they're going to just cook meth all day, all night. And they're just going to, the super lab. And Walter's like, yeah, Tuco, I'm not super interested in this plan. And he goes, oh, really? You're not interested in this plan? You don't really have a choice. Like, you're coming with me. And it's pretty uncomfortable because he also mentions that, Jesse won't be making the trip.
Yeah, he basically looks at Jesse and thinks, yeah, you're a waste of space. There's no way you're coming with us. Points the guy at him. He's like, you're you're done, basically.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Walter, to his credit, sticks up for Jesse. He says, no, I need him. Like, this is my guy. Like, we're partners. And, you know, if you want me there, well, you got to have Jesse around as well. So in a way, Walter does kind of, in a sense, save Jesse's life, right, at this point.
Yeah, I think if he wanted to, if he didn't back him up, he would be dead, because Tuco hates him, like we've already said, and he doesn't mind killing people. We've seen that. So then he talked. Tuco, he does a line of meth, and he just kind of, we can tell he's already a little erratic, clearly, because he knows the DA is looking for him. And he mentions that he thinks Gonzo is ratting on him. And he's like, do you guys think that's weird? He's asking and he's like, Walter's like, yeah, but that's weird. Yeah.
Odd. Yeah.
And Jesse's like, yeah, it's super weird, bro. And he's just, and we know that Gonzo is dead because he was trying to move the body. He's not a confidential informant like he's thinking he is. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Tuco is so paranoid. He even starts taking a knife, stabbing the table, telling them what he's going to do when he sees Gonzo, and just waste him. And this makes Jesse and Walter even more afraid of their surroundings.
Yeah, because it's at this point that Gonzo has already been gone, no pun intended, and Tuco doesn't know this. Everyone else in his crew has been picked up except for Gonzo. They can't find Gonzo anywhere, so won't return his calls.
So it does make sense.
It looks to this way, but we also know that Hank sent a picture to Jesse. Yeah. Well, not to Jesse, sorry, to Walter with Gonzo there. So it creates a little bit of confusion, and they know that if Gonzo's not the informant, that they automatically look like it because they're the newer people on his crew. You know, they don't know him very well, so they're like, listen, we're going to keep this in a wrap, and Gonzo can be, you know, Gonzo can take the fall for this one, even though there's not much he can do at this point.
Right. And so he starts stabbing the table. He's walking around, and they emptied their pockets. He learns who they are. Tuco's not that bright. He thought Heisenberg was his real name, which I thought was funny. And he even mentions, I like working with a family man, a lot of loose ends, which was kind of gripping. But they have They have this bag of meth that we know from the last episode is poisoned with ricin, made from beans, and it will kill you over a period of time. And Tuco's looking at it, and he goes, smells like toe cheese, like it stinks. And Jesse's like, yeah, it might stink, but it's the bomb. You take a hit of that, you'll be flying high for days. It's even got a secret ingredient. And Tuco's like, what is it? And Jesse goes, chili powder.
Chili pea.
Really confidently. And Tuco just goes, I hate chili powder. And he just chucks the bag away and grabs the fresh stuff. But it's a really funny scene because they had them, and Jesse had to throw in what the secret ingredient was, and he immediately was turned off.
Yeah, at this point, that's the only reason. That's the only thing, you know, it looks like that could be able to save them. They got Tuco there. Mm-hmm. You know, he's got the keys to the whip, Jesse's Monte Carlo. And it's not like they can run off or do anything. So this poison seems to be their only way out of this little pen that he's got him in.
Yeah. So he doesn't want it anymore. They're at the table. We'll mention just quickly, while this is happening, Marie, Skylar, and Walter Jr. are handing out flyers of a picture of Walter all over Albuquerque. And you know, they're doing that kind of as a family. And then we see the scene where Hank and Marie tell Skylar that he has a second cell phone, and she was unaware of this. And you know, Hank just says, you know, it just means he's keeping a secret. And they mentioned the dope, and he said, you know, Marie says, well, what about the dope? And, you know, questioning him about the dope. And Skylar says, well, his dealer was his former student, Jesse Pinkman. And this leads Hank to do a little digging on his own.
Yes. So Hank decides that he's going to go to Jesse's house. He goes to Jesse's house. Well, there's no one home, no car there. So he goes to Jesse's parents. And, you know, Jesse's parents, as we know previously, don't have a great relationship with their son.
Mm-hmm.
But at first, Hank doesn't come off like someone who's asking questions on behalf of Jesse, but more or less trying to find his brother-in-law. So, the mother takes a little offense when he finds out what his real what his real occupation is, and knowing that his son might her son might have infiltrations with Jesse being, I guess, a narcotics dealer, we'll say.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
No.
He doesn't tell her, and he's reaching, and then the one thing he gets out of the conversation, she's a little PO'd, but she says, "I hope you can find Walter." But he says, "Does he still drive the Monte Carlo?" And she goes, "Yeah, if he spent as much time studying as he did money on that car, he'd really be somewhere." Hank he's a smart dude. We learn, we see that, but we learn it here. He says Monte Carlos have this device that you can kind of track where it is. He tells us to Gomi, and he says, "I bet you his car has one. Try to look it up, and maybe that'll lead me to Walter," not knowing that it would lead him to Tuco at the same time. But he's thinking, I can find Walter. Let's see if he's with Jesse. This could be a dead end, but it's the only lead I have. So he tells Gomi to look into it.
Yeah. And I didn't know this, and I looked it up just to see if it was true the second round watching it, and it is. And it does have something to do with the device that I guess makes
I think it's the lowrider setting shit.
Oh, okay.
It has some kind of device where it can be tracked. So
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I looked it up, same as you, and it basically, the device that's put in the car, you can track just based on the manufacturing of it. So buy Monte Carlo.
Anyway, we pivot back to the shack, and Walter, it's a weird situation. It's not a living room, obviously, but they're on the couch, and they're looking directly at Tuco, who's now cooking. He's cooking up some meats. He's getting some eggs. Like, I can't have you guys going to Mexico on empty stomachs. That'll be no good. So he starts cooking up food for the boys, and at the same time, Hector is looking in their direction, which is closer towards the TV. And Walter's kind of give him one of these, like where he waves his hand in front of his face to see if he's actually paying attention, because at this point he hasn't said anything, and he really hasn't moved a whole lot, probably. All he does is click his little bell, and that's about the extent of it. And sure enough, Walter's like, what we can do? We have to get Tuco to take this meth somehow. We gotta put it in something he's gonna eat, or maybe drink. So Tuco gets up. He's like, "Come on, like, you guys at the table, come eat." And what does Walter do? Well, Tuco's moving Hector around for the table. He puts the rice and meth into Tuco's burrito / taco.
Yeah.
And who sees it at the last second but Hector? Catches it with his eye. And I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, it's super interesting because as he's turning him, he spots Walter putting it back, and Tuco has no idea.
He's looking the other way.
He's telling them eat. Like, he sits them down, and before Tuco can take a bite, all he hears bing, and Jesse and Walter just like look at each other like, what? This guy can freaking do stuff. And he keeps hammering. And Tuco goes, "Theo, I eat first. You know the rules." And then he hammers it again before he can take a bite. And he goes, "Fucking old people, eh? I give them all their meal. I take care of them. And yet they still want stuff from me." Yeah. And he goes, "Fine, Theo, you can have the bigger piece." So he shoves his plate there. And so Jesse and Walter are like, "Oh, fuck." He'll die. But as Tuco digs into the fresh plate, we see Hector still has a little fight in him, because he gets enough strength to get off the chair with his hand, and he swipes the plate right off the table.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm thinking, I kind of forgetting what's happening here, but I'm like, oh my God, like, it's going to break. And, of course, Tuco is going to see that of course, all this crystals in here, because I mean, it's got to have some kind of taste, right? He said it smells like garbage, so obviously they've got to notice. But sure enough, doesn't happen. Tuco just kind of has a little fit. He's like, why the hell would you do that? And, loses it at his uncle. But no, and then it basically, we can see that Hector, even from a chair, and even though you're right, he's just kind of immobile, still has a lot of use and still has a lot of
his mind is still there.
Yeah, clearly it's all there, and we see that more in the second episode, in a really good scene back at the DA's office. But no, it's Hector looking out for his family. He knows, and automatically now he knows that Walter and Jesse are out to get his family, we'll say.
And even prior to this, they switched the channel of his TV because what came up on the screen, a dead Gonzo and the other fella, and they switched the channel, and Hector started hammering the bell again. So he's like, what's going on here? And he looks at them. He said, what did you do to my Theo? And he's freaking out at them. And this is where we see how people interact with him. Tuco says, you don't like them, do you, Theo? Ding. Do you trust them, Theo? You don't trust them, do you, Theo? Ding. And this is the big one. Did they do something that you don't like, Theo? Ding. And then, are they punking me, Theo? Ding, 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 ding. And we just see he's got an assault rifle in his hand, grabs Jesse, and brings him outside into the desert.
Yeah, just absolutely pounds the shit out of him. Yeah. As Walter trails behind, but can't do anything because he's got a loaded gun.
Yeah.
And this looks like the end of the old boy Jesse, and sure enough, Tuco's like, Walter Heisenberg, whatever he calls him, what did you do to me? He's got the gun at Jesse's head, and Walter just tells him, we were going to poison you.
Yeah, he was so honest, because we don't see that a lot from Walter. He said, we tried to poison you because you were an insane, degenerate piece of filth, and you deserve to die. And Tuco's about to turn around, probably to fire, but Jesse's got a rock in the sand, and he hammers Tuco over the head. Mm-hmm. And before, Walter, he grabs the gun, but he just points it at Tuco, not shooting, as Tuco is on top of Jesse, about to choke him to death. He's just standing there with the gun, pointing at him. But Jesse has enough strength to. Tuco's got just a Glock in his belly, basically, and he grabs it, shoots him in the gut, and Jesse's PO because he hates him so much, so he kicks him a few times, and then they dump him into this little sand pit. But yeah, he's still alive, but they kick him into the sand pit, and they try to flee the scene.
Yeah, and there's this scene, Juggy, where they've both got their guns pointed, and like, it took me a while to remember this, but I thought for sure they just diced him. But you kind of showed that they show mercy, and they're just like, basically Walter just says, let him bleed out, like he's just gonna die, like whatever. And they're like, okay. So of course they run back to the Monte Carlo, but obviously Tuco's got his keys, and they're like, oh, what are we gonna do? And a car from the distance is starting to creep towards this little shack, and they're thinking it's the cousins of Tuco who are coming to get them so they can get to Mexico.
Fair point for them. I mean, that's the only people that they're terrified, so they run. They hide behind a little bit of debris. I mean, we're in the middle of the desert, so it's there are a couple cans and a couple cactuses basically. Yeah. They're hiding behind that. And we see Tuco pull himself out of the pit. He starts walking to Jesse's car. Now, they left the gun in the car. And who pulls up to the scene? It's not the cousins. It's Hank Schrader. And he gets out of the car and he says, Jesse Pinkman, you're a hard guy to find. And he realizes it after about 5 seconds that that's not Jesse, it's Tuco.
Yeah, and bloody Tuco just turns towards him, and there's this scene of what do you call it? Intensity? Maybe, I don't know. Between the two, where they just kind of look at each other.
Bow, bow, bow. Just a Mexican standoff, near the border, where Tuco's looking in the car. Hank knows what he's like, easy. Tuco grabs the assault rifle and just starts, I think he shoots about 100 rounds because he's just firing. He's not aiming. There's glass everywhere, bullets. Hank's firing shots in the ground, just trying to protect himself. And so they both shoot, he's got a Glock, he's got an AR, and they both shoot the entire round. And they're both reloading. Tuco's at about the front, the passenger door window. Hank's by the driver's side window. He reloads first. So he's ready. He's basically perched, ready to fire whenever he sees a head pop up. And it's a great scene because Tuco is about ready just to blow a hole, a cat through his ass. But as he does, Hank shoots one shot to the temple, and that's c'est la vie for Tuco Salamanca.
I know, one of the greatest yet short-lived characters of the show. It takes an early exit, we'll say. But yeah, no, it's a great scene. It's got a lot of action to it. Hank gets more than one gunfight with someone from this family, but we'll get to that. In a few episodes. And he didn't stand a chance. You're right. Tuco's fatigued though. He's just kind of shooting to shoot, really, because he's just hoping that he gets this guy. That way he could probably get away and probably
he knows he's going to jail for life.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So he would rather die than go to jail again. He's been in jail a few times. Clearly he's not, and it is 1v1. So if he kills this guy,
he's got nothing to worry about.
No other cop coming. I mean, he suspects there's no backup, which there wasn't. I mean, just to put it back into perspective, Hank went there thinking he was going to find Jesse, not thinking Tuco was going to be at this compound. It was just, so now Hank sees his Monte Carlo with Tuco there, a big bag of cash in the back seat. So it does not look good for Jesse at this point because he's right in the middle of this murder / drug deal gone bad kind of thing. And Walter and Jesse, after this gunfight's over, just start running into the desert because they have no other option, really. They don't, Walter's petrified. It's his brother-in-law standing there.
It'd be a bad look to find him, caught red-handed in this whole, I guess, kerfuffle. But no, and that's basically how this episode ends. But it's just funny, like, to see Walter and Jesse together for a full episode. We get introduced to Hector, who's throughout the show, and I guess everything in between. But it is a really good episode. I like this one more than I like the third episode, we'll say. But also good.
I agree, for sure. And what I do love about the end of the episode, the gunfight's over. He kicks Tuco's gun away. He sees that he's dead. But at the end of the episode, all he hears is ding, 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 ding.
Yes, I forgot.
Hector is alive inside, but Hank's got to be like, what the hell's going on?
I know. Yeah, it's so strange.
But that's it. It fades to black, but that's how the episode ends. And Hector, he makes an appearance in the next episode, but he makes a bigger appearances through the show. But like you said,
you told me once before that there was a reason that this actor Tuco Salamanca was cut off early from the show. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So Raymond Cruz, who played Tuco, they wanted him to live longer because he was so compelling. Just his age and he was just great, really good actor. He could not keep having that level of anger and that excitement. It really took a toll on him. He said, like, to get that angry all the time, it really affected his personal life and just social interactions. And because he felt like he had to be in character all the time. So when he was off set, he would be angry with his wife, with his kids, and that really affected him.
Wow. That was news to me. I saved it because I didn't know when you told me that a while back. We said we were going to share it, but that is crazy because if anyone who doesn't watch the show or is not following along with the show, he brings another level of this psychotic, like, just off the wall craziness. And you're right, like it would take an enormous amount of strength, and more importantly, to go home and put that away would probably really not good for somebody. You think of these method actors, right, Juggy, like Daniel Day-Lewis, Christian Bale.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it takes a ton of practice, and more importantly, it's something to kind of just go home and shut that off. It can't be easy.
Yeah, and even I know we both love both of these films. The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger, and even Joker with Walk. I mean, that those two roles took a lot out of both of them. I mean, Heath Ledger, it killed him, and Walk. I mean, he had to drop 50 pounds. I mean, he had to, become a psychotic person, and that's not being Stifler. There's a difference, and I think
Yes,
sometimes
absolutely.
we don't really think about it. Sometimes
No.
it can be this, it can be weight loss, weight gain. I mean, it's a lot to be a great actor. It takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of strain on you mentally and physically.
Yeah. To think though that we almost got even if it would have been a half a season, or even like maybe they kill him off in like the second or third last episodes of the season 2,
Mm-hmm.
would have been unbelievable, because you're right, he's such a compelling character. He brought so much to it. And yeah, he'll be missed, but R.I.P. Tuco Salamanca. He's one for the books for sure.
Yeah, agreed. So we pivot right to episode 3. It's called "Bit by a Dead Bee," and we see Jesse and Walter. They're still in the desert and they're burying the gun. Which, yeah, good luck finding that gun ever. And so they bury the gun, and we see it's in the middle of the day in the desert near the Mexican. It's hot as hell, and they start walking through the desert trying to get to the main road. For context, Jesse's wearing a sweater with really thick jeans. Like, that's got to be brutal. The chafing, and I can't even imagine. But that's my first thought. They
should have cut the jorts, bud?
Should have got the jorts or something. Yeah, should have brought an extra pair. I don't know. So they start walking. They no water, but they eventually get to the main road, and they flag down this truck. But Walter's the only one that's going to get in. It's with a bunch of Mexicans, and Jesse says, "Mr. White, are you sure this plan's going to work? It's pretty crazy." And he says, "Yeah, it'll work." And that leads us to Walter going to the convenience store and getting buck naked.
Yeah, it's this great scene where he's just dropping clothes left and right, and this store clerk is following him, picking up everything, and until you get to the classic Walter White, I would say, granny panties. That's what they look like to me. And it picks them up, and sure enough, she's just in shock as she looks up. But this is all applaud. This is because Walter needs to have an alibi, per se, and we find out what that alibi is fairly shortly after this.
So yeah, he's buck naked, and they're finding clothes all over the place, and so the alibi is that he's in the hospital, and he's basically had 2 days of amnesia. He doesn't remember anything, and he's kind of disoriented. Well, Skylar's talking to the doctor, and they don't know, what happened with him. They said, we can't find anything in his test that say that anything bad happened with him. Walter wakes up and he's like, "I'm so sorry." He kind of chimes in, "Well, could this be a side effect of my cancer and this and that?" And he kind of uses that as leverage, as an excuse as to why all this craziness took place.
Yeah, they're wondering. They're like, "Is this a medication? Oh, this could be the chemo." And they kind of sliding these, I would say, hidden jabs at the fact that there's so many pills and so many different medications Walter has to take throughout the day. And he even mentions, "Well, since I've been off my medication," because obviously, he doesn't remember the last couple of days. Well, he feels better. He keeps saying, "I feel better. I feel like myself again." But the doctors, they're not convinced that this is just nothing, and they want to make sure that it's not reoccurring, because if it is, then there could be a thousand things going wrong besides that. So they basically just keep him there and keep running tests on him.
Yeah, and we don't know the whole story yet, but Walter's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Like, I can go home." And they're like, No. Like, no. You're not going anywhere. We got to run further tests, psych evaluations, whatever." So no dice, and clearly this is frustrating to him because he's got to rely now on Jesse for this whole story to ring true on Jesse's side, because Jesse's caught in the middle of this crossfire with Hank.
Yes. So of course Jesse gets, back, and he's a man on the run. His car was involved in a huge shooting. Why his car was there, no one knows. But we see him and Badger, one of our favorite friends, outside Jesse's home. And, they're kind of waiting. The police are there. They don't go inside. Jesse's like, well, I can't give them, reasonable cause to go inside just yet. So they go in, and, I totally forgot about this, but they have all these meth stuff still in the basement because that's where they were last cooking. So they get inside, and, Badger, of course, Jesse's on edge here. He's a man wanted, and he's basically freaking out. But in terms, Badger is like the stupid friend where he doesn't really care. He's just like, oh man, like, let's cook a quick batch. You owe me for leaving me in the desert a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Jesse kind of snaps at him and says, listen, man, like, you got to smarten up. We got to get this stuff out of here ASAP.
Yeah. So he says, don't fuck with me, Badger. Yeah. And so Badger kind of clicks in, and he starts helping him. They transport all the gear, they wash it down, and they put it all in the RV. Now, as we remember, the RV is out of commission. So Badger, he is helpful. He calls his cousin, who runs a tow yard. They get the guy comes, and he's like, yeah, it's $1,000, not 500, because of the cargo inside. But Jesse's only got $560. So the guy's going to lower the RV. But, Badger vouches for him and says, no, he's good for it. He'll pay for his debt. Like, I know Jesse's, he's a solid dude. And the guy says, I want my other 500. Jesse says, no problem. Like, I'll get it to you when I have it. But he does take the RV full of equipment, and they get that off of Jesse's property.
Yeah, it's at this point that Jesse and Badger just kind of a small conversation, basically saying Badger's going to be the one to call him in. Badger's going to be the one to rat on him. But this was the overall plan that, when Walter and Jesse were walking through the desert, this is what they came up with. So what happens after this? Well, he goes to one of our favorite places, the Crystal Palace, the motel where it's probably the sketchiest motel in all of America. But we see Jesse's just hidden in there with his best friend, Wendy, who he knows the prostitute / meth head that Jesse befriends. But also, to her credit, takes a major bullet for Jesse throughout this episode.
Yeah, clearly she cares for him because she has nothing to gain from this.
No.
Just to be a good friend. So they're laying on the bed. She's doing a line, and then the DEA breaks down the door, and they're both taken into custody. Jesse's. We pivot to him in the interrogation room, and he's just, he's banging on the table, and he's acting like it's no big deal. And Hank just slams his fist on it. He says, hey, shut up, you little puke. Let's go through this again. I don't buy your story. Yeah. And he just says, I was with Wendy since Saturday. I didn't leave the room. Did you guys order in? No, I got Funyuns from the machine.
And a Pop-Tart.
And he's saying, I never, and he said, I didn't leave. And, they go, we found your car. And he goes, what? You found my car? That's it, DEA all the way.
Tries to high five him.
Tries to high five. I mean, they put the bag of cash on the table.
Yeah.
Nearly $67,000 in cash. And Jesse's got to be like, no, not mine. Don't know anything about it. And it's his rainy day fund.
Yeah, so essentially Jesse's taking the major hit here out of the two partners, because he, of course, we know when Jesse was leaving, he was leaving the state. He was getting away. He was, Walter basically said, you got to get out of here, like go to a different city or go to a different state because Tuco's going to kill us. That was their last intentions when he got into that car.
Yeah.
But clearly, Tuco had other plans, and now Jesse's kind of a poor man. And it's almost like Hank knows it's his money, but he can't. But of course, if Jesse doesn't say anything, he can't prove it. So he's just kind of smiling, being like, he's like, oh, this is Tuco's. Well, I'd kill myself too if I lost this.
Yeah.
And Jesse's like, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. And he basically says, you know, I don't buy your bleeping story. Like, it's BS. And he says, this is a great line. He says, he did not, he said, you did not shoot Tuco. The only thing you shoot is into a napkin. And it's a good little dig at Jesse. And he leaves the room. And who does they go talk to but Wendy? And she's like, I want my root beer. I know my rights. And which is funny. But to her credit, like, she does not rat on him.
No,
she
doesn't crack.
Hank. She goes, you're the guy that wanted me to sleep with the football player.
Yeah, this is the same, just in context, this is the same girl that Hank brought, or I guess when Hank and Walter Jr. pulled up to Crystal Palace, this is the same girl who came out and was basically like, I'm not sleeping with him. Like poor Walter Jr. just feel like a bag of shit.
Yeah.
But Hank's trying to show Walter Jr. the other side, and of course Wendy was part of this other side, and and to her credit, it backfires on Hank, because Hank's kind of like and Gomi, Hank's partner, is basically like, well, did you try to get a football player to sleep with that girl? And he's like, that's a story for another day. But doesn't crack, like you said. Wendy stays true to the whole time. She said, I was with Jesse the entire time. He didn't leave the room. And that's the alibi. That's what you need. A good friend. We've said this before. You said that Wendy, it's kind of like one of Jesse's true friends, essentially, throughout the show.
Right. Yeah. And for sure, because Badger, Skinny Pete, they wouldn't do that for him.
No.
But she does, and with nothing to gain. So we pivot back to Walt, and he starts talking to a therapist, and they're going through, like, why do you think this happened? He's so sick of it. He wants to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
He goes, Walter, is there a client doctor, confidentiality? He goes, yeah, of course. He goes, yeah, there's no amnesia. I was just sick of being at home. I was sick of being in that house, and I need to get the hell out of there. And he says, yeah, I went for a walk. I hitchhiked for a while, and then, I had to make the lie believable. So I went to that grocery store, and the doctor's just like, what? Like, what? And Walter wasn't completely truthful, but he was truthful enough to get the doctor to kind of be like, okay, this is what's happening here.
Yeah. And for a lie, it sounds a lot like a truth. I think you'll agree on that.
Yeah.
When Walter's spinning it off, he's basically saying, like, I got a pregnant wife who didn't plan on being pregnant. I got a son with cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
I
got lung cancer. Like, this is my life.
Yeah. So he's basically telling this, but even though it's a lie, it sounds so much like a truth, and it sounds like someone who was in his situation would do. So I think that he gets the pass on this one.
Yeah, for sure. So
and Walter, go ahead.
No, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it's at this point where Walter's he's in his room, he's playing with the bed and doing stuff, but he kind of clicks to him. I left a whole bunch of cash and a gun in a box, basically, in my future daughter's bedroom.
Yeah.
How long until someone's gonna pick that up? So Walter does what he thinks is best, and he catches a bus and goes home.
Yeah, he sneaks out of the hospital, and he takes the bus and sneaks into the house, and he puts the money and puts the gun back in the air vent, and to his smart move. And while he's doing that, of course, like any good movie or film, TV show, Skylar and Walter Jr. both wake up in the middle of the night with a hunger for cereal, of course. And I think he's kind of sad in this moment, Shay, because he's seeing what their life's going to be like without him.
I never thought of it like that.
He's watching their future with him not around.
Yeah, I was under the impression they're doing that, like the kind of the stress and the pain that he's been causing as of late because of his absence there. But that's also a way to see it, like, hey, like this is what their life is going to be like if I don't. And I think that basically kind of runs into the end of the episode where he gives Jesse a call, which we'll get to in a bit. But I think we can pivot back to, I think, one of the best scenes of this episode. And Hank's kind of at the window looking at Jesse. Jesse comes over to the window like, well, what do you got now? Like, what's it going to be? And sure enough, he looks to the left, and who's there but Theo, aka Hector.
Yeah, just a second, because Dirk is just being a little nuisance.
I'll go off. So basically Hector's there, and the dread on Jesse's face when he sees Hector, knowing he's the only person that could probably ruin this, because he was the only person other than Tuco that was there that day. And he's everything into tying him back to that scene. But we see that, not everything goes according to plan, we'll say, for Gomi and Hank.
Yeah, so Jesse goes, come on, like, this guy doesn't even know what damn planet he's on. So Gomi says, are we on the planet Mars? No ding. Are we on the planet Earth? Ding.
Yeah.
And he asks him like what day of the week it is. So he's coherent. He knows what the hell he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, was this man at your house yesterday? No ding. And it's kind of surprising in the moment, because you're like, why wouldn't he say it? Like, he had something to do with Tuco's death in a sense. He doesn't do it. And then Hank says, he was with you yesterday, right? Like, asking Hector. And Hector sits up a bit, looks directly in Hank's face, and just takes a massive shit in his pants, and it leaks onto the floor, sending a direct message that he hates the DEA.
Yeah, all law enforcement. And and they go back, it pivots to them back in the office, and they're like, well, it was worth a try, but there's basically no fooling that this guy was, there's no turning an OG, smuggler, we'll say, which is, something we learned, because we don't really know much about Hector to this point. Yeah. We just kind of know that he was an old man at Tuco's lair, we'll say, and that's it. But, we find out that he maybe has a more mischievous past than we thought.
Right. So they have to release Jesse and Wendy because they have nothing on them. But Jesse calls Walter on a payphone. Walter said, did everything go okay? He goes, yeah, thanks for asking if I'm all right, dick. And then he says, but I'm out of money. Like, they got my money. I got $12 to my name. And he says, well, did you get the RV fixed? And he goes, well, it's getting done, whatever. And he says, well, let me know when it is. And Jesse's like, why? So we can cook. And he goes, you still want to cook? And he goes, Jesse, what's changed here? And ends the phone call.
It's crazy to think about everything that happens, and Walter's mind is still all about the cash. He still wants to produce, and he wants to cook with Jesse. So it's crazy, and it's almost dumbfounded. But I think this goes into what you were saying earlier about him looking at what his life was going to be like. Obviously struggling financial family, if he doesn't find a way to muster up this money like he said he was. He had a goal in mind. It was like 760 some thousand. Mm-hmm. And obviously still has to reach at. The only problem now is he doesn't have a supplier to sell to.
Right. And so they're going to have to move in a different direction when it comes to their selling of meth, because they don't have a wholesaler. They were making $70,000 every week. And now they're going to have to sell it like they were before, where Walter hated how little money they're bringing in, just Jesse selling it person to person. So as we move forward into the season, we're going to see how they start their new business and what they do to start making money again.
Yeah, this is it's interesting, and it goes probably into play with what we said about Tuco having to leave the show early, because of this style of acting that he was doing. It just took a toll on him, and obviously they can't have him tone it down, so they have to kill him off completely. But obviously we get introduced to new characters, better characters, and it's it's good. But it's also worth noting that Jesse calls his dad as soon as he gets out of the DEA's office, tries to get his dad to help him out. Oh, can you give me a drive? And his dad shuts him down, basically. He even lies to his dad. He's like, yeah, I got a new job with data analytics.
Yeah.
And his dad probably's on the other side, just like, oh, like, Jesse, why are you lying to me?
Yeah, they know that a DEA agent was looking for him, so they're probably like, yeah, Jesse, no, like this is not happening. And so episode really ends with Walter moving back home. He's going back with Skylar and Walter Jr. He's back in the house. They kind of have a good night together, and they're laying in bed and they're about to go to sleep. And Skylar says, Walt, there's something I haven't asked you yet. He goes, okay, what's up? And she goes, do you have a second cell phone? And he goes, such a Walter thing. Second cell phone? Like, no, that's weird.
Trisac. Yeah, Trisac confused.
I don't remember anything about that. And she doesn't believe him. Like she she called into question what he was doing the whole time, because if he's lying about this,
he'd be lying about it all.
He's lying about the whole damn thing.
Yep. Yeah, and it's interesting because like and she knows, like she knows he has a second phone. So this is him getting caught in a lie. And it doesn't look good. She basically said, like, you got a call that night and we traced it back. We couldn't see it on your phone. Do you have a second phone? She doesn't really say, I know you have a second phone, but she's fishing, and obviously it's
sketching. Saying, I know you have a second phone. Are you willing to tell me?
Yeah, you're gonna fess up.
And what's the reason for it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a good look. You can tell that he's home, but he's not home in the sense that his family feels divided at this point.
Yeah, their relationship just continues to get worse. I think he thought he's in the hospital, he's found, maybe they can regroup. This first lie immediately tore it back to where it was before, maybe even made it worse, and we'll see that continue as we move forward.
Yeah, but like you said, couple good episodes. Episodes 1 and 2 in this season are actually phenomenal. Really and you forget when I rewatched it, it was just almost breathtaking, because like just I don't know, the whole meeting Hector scene and them being in that shack, and the final gunfight at the end of episode 2, it does kind of really ties it nicely together. But we see a whole other good stuff going on in the rest of season 2 as well.
Yeah, a lot of interesting episodes to come. We're gonna, like you said, meet some interesting characters, go through some really interesting plot lines, see what they do to sell meth, where they cook. A lot of crazy hijinks involved in that as well. So we'll go through that. But that was episodes 2 and 3 of season 2. We'll be back next week as always. But what do you got in the docket the rest of the week, Shay?
Gonna get a little 9-hole in there tomorrow night, I think, with my good friends Brandon and Dawson. We're gonna make the trip up to Westfield, the old home course. Other than that, just trying to cheer on the Leafs tonight. I just sniffing a big W tonight. Also got my Celtics not looking great against Brooklyn.
Into that.
What? Didn't want to get into that? Yeah, it's not great, but they're there.
That's an L tonight.
Yeah, they need to pull out one win would be nice. That's all I ask for as a sensible person. Just if they can get one, then I'm like, okay, well, don't have to give the brooms out. I don't know any Brooklyn fans. I don't really want to know any Brooklyn fans, but yeah, you can at me if you want. What about you? What's going on? What's the
Well, I'm gonna have to buy a new light because Dirk bit through it during our. I
was gonna say, for everyone listening, Juggy kind of just he went lights out this game, and it wasn't in the.
That's the second light she's bitten through, so that's still love her, but fuck a little fucker. Like you said, just watched a lot of sports. This past weekend was great, seeing Lefty win the PGA.
Yes.
NBA starting. We got the World Hockey Championships. Canada's 0-3. Jesus. French Open starting. U.S. Open golf in a couple weeks. I mean, we got the playoffs kicking. So it's the perfect time to be a sports fan. This is usually April, but we're here in late May, having the same feel that we have normally, and to see fans back in the buildings and see the United States open up. And even though our government isn't competent, it's good to see that, they get to enjoy something that we probably won't for a while.
Yeah, playing it safe worked out so well for us. But no, And even to go into that, we're going to transition right into the summertime. And then even when all these playoffs end, you got Tokyo, which I'm sure you're going to be all over this summer.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you got Simone Biles looking for gold, and I can't, even track, like there's no Usain Bolt. Who's going to step in? Who's going to be the new Can Andre DeGrasse take that, take the strap, so to speak.
Yes.
And, there's no Michael Phelps. Can, Ryan Steroid Lochte, can he win another couple medals? So, and, I like winter more because of hockey, because of snowboarding, but there's no figure skating. So I do like summer a little bit more because we don't have to endure about a full week of figure skating. So
if there's one sport you would take out of the Summer Olympics, what would it be?
Summer Olympics.
When you're like, that's not a real sport, or competitive levels.
Break dancing.
Oh, I did see. Yes, I thought dancing or one of the cheerleading is actually kind of tough for some.
Cheerleading's athletic.
Yeah, but breakdancing, yes. I mean, you don't like the boogie, or what? What's up with that?
I got no rhythm, so maybe it's just a bit, jealous. But I don't see that as a sport. That's more of a hobby.
Yeah. You're gonna have a couple of haters with the professional breakdancing society, but that's all right. If they'll get over it.
Yeah, hopefully it's one and done. But a lot of good stuff to come. Shay, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll get back at it next Tuesday as always.
Sounds good, lad.
All right, everybody. Well, stay safe, stay healthy out there. Don't be in too big of a crowd because people look at you sideways. But enjoy the games tonight, and we'll be back next week. Take care.